Welcome to Amidon Planet. I am your host, Joel Amidon. Thank you for joining me in this never-ending quest to learn how to teach better. Today on episode 121 of the podcast, we have Lisa Hennessey, former high school math teacher, past president of the Wisconsin Math Council, current teaching faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, my alma mater, and candidate for the board of directors for the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. Unbelievable. I remember when Lisa was in my math methods class. We're going to talk a lot about that in this episode, and just, seeing potential, and now just seeing the realized potential and all that she's doing to not only what she's done for her former students in teaching them, to be doers of mathematics, then in helping others through being a math coach and helping them be doers of mathematics, doing that same role now in the as a teaching faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, working in a place that every time I go to, I tear up when I go onto the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's a special place to me, and I'm so excited for her that she gets to work there now. But then also, too, in her role as former president of the Wisconsin Math Council, and then now wanting to take a shot at being a board member for the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And putting yourself out there, it's not easy. I mean, it's not like doing these roles is easy, but to put yourself out there to take a risk, that's pretty cool. So I'm just excited to have this conversation with Lisa. I'm excited to share it with y'all. It's kind of reminiscent of these conversations I had during the pandemic, where I talked to Brian DeSalvo. I talked to who was another former student. I talked to Joe Dye, my clinical instructor, who then I had another conversation with about Malcolm Gladwell's book, Talking to Strangers. Getting to talk to these blasts from the past and getting to share these conversations. One, it's a great excuse to have the conversations, and I think that there's value in sharing them, and just talking about, her path towards leadership in math education, and just seeing the evolution from pre-service teacher to, again, wanting to pursue a board position in the National Math Council, or National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And again, taking that risk. And so currently, as this is being released in late February or mid to late February, there is time to vote. So there's lots of candidates out there for the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, board members, lots of great board members. We've had actually another candidate, Ayanna Perry, has been on this podcast. We'll put a link to that episode as well, is also running for the board. And again, just people that care a lot about the future of math education. And that's what we want in our leaders there. And so just, again, thankful for both of them for wanting to put themselves out there and to step into these roles. So I'm talking too much. Let's move on to my conversation with Lisa Hennessey, former student, teaching faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and leader in math education. All right, Lisa Hennessey, welcome to Amidon Planet. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Joel?
Doesn't that sound ridiculous? Like, we've known each other for so long, and I'm saying welcome to a planet that doesn't exist. Anyway, Lisa, so glad that you're joining us in the frigid tundra of Wisconsin. So, yeah, I mean, that's it's cold down here, but it's insanely. How cold is it up there if we're talking math?
Well, so currently it's 6 degrees, but this morning it was -10 with a wind chill of -21.
There you go.
Somewhere around there.
Perfect context to start talking about positive and negative integers, right?
Yeah.
And talking about the difference between the two, which way. And so, it's a context that a lot of Mississippi doesn't get a chance to deal with. So, there's a lot of math there that you could hang on to.
Yeah, or even temperature swings, because it's supposed to be 40 degrees this weekend.
Oh, there you go. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Coming back. All right, Lisa, let's give a little background. Here's what I have. I have that we have former high school math teacher, past president of Wisconsin Math Council, current teaching faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and current candidate for the board of directors for the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. How'd I do? What did I miss?
What did you miss? Well, that's a lot of it. My time as a high school teacher evolved before coming to UW-Madison as a 4K-12 math coordinator. And then I also dabbled in the summer as a summer school coordinator.
Yeah.
But, like you, or a summer school principal, excuse me, you do all the hats, right? And
Right. So
yeah,
where did it start even before? So we know each other because initially,
yeah,
because I was a doctoral student at the University of Wisconsin, and I had the privilege of teaching secondary math methods. And I believe did I have you for two of the courses?
yes. I had you both years.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it was almost like kind of like almost like a cohort of, well, I mean, you moved together with your crew, and I
Yeah.
had you for the two math methods courses, which was, amazing to see your development as a teacher. But then where were we before that? Where'd you grow up? Like, what was the context before? What led you
Oh, yeah.
to Wisconsin initially?
Well, I grew up in the state of Wisconsin, Kaukauna, Go-Go's up by Green Bay. And I was one of those kids that loved school and was actually a really good memorizer, like a lot of us who become
Yeah.
math teachers.
Yeah.
And I decided that I wanted to be a teacher of the grade I was in. So, like third grade, I wanted to be a third grade teacher. Fourth grade, I wanted to be a fourth grade teacher. Took a hiatus, thought about architecture, came back. Senior year of high school, I was like, I think I want to teach math. So I said, okay, well, University of Wisconsin-Madison is right in my backyard.
Yeah.
I don't put stock behind rankings as much as I did as a high schooler, but
Yeah.
that did play an effect. And my parents said, you need to go in the state. So decided to come here, study math education, and then ended up in your methods class my junior and senior year.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it kind of amazing? I mean, like, in hindsight, I think your stories are, similar where, there's lots of great schools you could go in the state of Wisconsin, whether I was thinking about UW Green Bay. I was kind of a Phoenix fan with Tony Bennett and Dick Bennett in basketball back in the day, versus even we could have gone to Minnesota. I don't know if they still had reciprocity
Yeah.
when you were in school too. So you had lots of options, and but in my mind, I was like, any other place I'd go, I'd be like, well, I could have been at Wisconsin. If I could have gone to Wisconsin, like the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I'd want to go there and being a first, and I don't know about your background. I was a first gen college student or, college graduate. My dad went to college for a semester or two. But, having that as like a North Star to go to, it'd be like, oh my gosh, it'd be awesome to be a Badger. I don't know. Like, did you have any of that within your family as well?
Yeah, so I was also a first generation college student. Yep, my parents grew up in the area, stayed in the area. I'm actually one of the farthest away cousins on both sides of my family, even though I'm 2 hours from my folks.
Yeah.
And
In the big city.
Yeah, exactly. It is big in comparison to a lot of places in Wisconsin. But yeah. I actually wanted to get out of the state and explore someplace new for forever. And then just senior year, it was like, well, if I want to teach in Wisconsin, I should probably go to a school here for that teaching credential to be just a smoother process. And yeah, if I'm going into teaching, why would I go anywhere else was kind of my mantra. And I ended up, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, just looking back now. In the moments you don't know, but you do it. And then Yeah,
when you look at some of the major movements in math education, and it's like, there's Wisconsin, either there was from Wisconsin or there's like people that went to Wisconsin. Like there's just, so much that's, been gone through that place. And in 2020 hindsight, when I was a doc student, and be like, oh, there's Tom Romberg. He kind of did a lot, and Tom Carpenter, he too. And you just go down the line, Liz Fenema, holy cow. And, and then not to mention all the other educational folks, outside, whether it's Gloria Edson Billings, Tom Popkins, Michael Apple, the list goes on and on. And so we get that. So there's a little bit of background on our relationship. So during class, so pre-service teacher, excellent student. Congratulations, you did well in the courses and everything.
Oh,
it was
thank you.
Fun to see you. And then also too was Tori Kulo was from Portland. He was your supervisor, right? Who's now at Portland State.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, let's just shout out a little bit. What made Tori? I'm pretty sure she was an awesome supervisor. What made her an awesome supervisor for you as you're developing as a math teacher?
I just remember her posing a lot of deep questions. And I didn't always know how to answer them. Right. But it made me think a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to think back so long ago. I actually do remember one really critical part that Tori was involved in because she was my supervisor. And so then she came to seminar. My spring student teaching semester was the semester that Act 10 happened in Wisconsin, which was like the end of collective bargaining for teachers.
Yeah.
And our Madison school teachers went on strike and we didn't know what to do. And I think Linda McQuillan was one of the other supervisors, and Tori and her, and I don't know if you were there, but we went to Linda's house and we talked about it, like on one of the days of strike, to like really try to navigate what are we doing? How do we support the schools we're guests in while also honoring the amazing partnerships we're building with our mentor teachers and learning from them. And it was quite an interesting moment in time.
Yeah. I remember I think Joe Dye came to our methods class, and that was a day when the Capitol was being occupied. And he had a very eloquent way to say it. He's like, yeah, and after this, because Kate would come and like Joe Dye's been on the podcast a couple of times, so he would come and like just share his brilliance and just do a bunch of stuff, and like so it's like as much as Joe Dye can expose people to, I would. And then at the end of the class, he's like, and if anyone wants to go for a walk, I'm gonna walk up the hill, spend some time in a big building up there. If you want to go with, hey, I'm not saying, and just. It's one of those things where, looking back just describing, my experience as a math teacher at Sauk Prairie, where we didn't pay anything for health insurance, zero. And it was like, I was on the board or the union board, I guess, representative. I was a representative, and remember talking to our head guy, who was another math teacher. And, I wondered like, hey, why wouldn't we, pay a little bit and then we'd maybe get some concessions on salary or whatever. He's like, as soon as we pay something, it's not nothing, something is, and then something can always be increased and you don't notice it, but you didn't notice it if it's more than nothing. And so it was like, oh, wow. And we had fully funded retirement, and anything you did that was extra, like if you supervised bus duty, which is like something like people just say, like you're assigned that, like you got paid for it. Like, I mean, I did that. I got paid like $7 a day, something to go out and watch, make sure everybody got on the buses safe. It was one of those things where it was, you got compensated for those things. And so, it was good.
And all of that stopped. And so then, I don't even know any of that world because my first year teaching was post Act 10. Yeah.
So it was like individual contracts and things like that. And, I know that they're figuring it out, and people are figuring out how to make that work. But it was just, I don't know. There was something about that where, in Mississippi, they don't have unions, and I just wondered like if there was just a little bit of that, there's got to be some middle ground somewhere where, just to make sure that we recognize that the efforts that people are making, and like, are we properly compensating, all that good stuff. So didn't want that tangent, but there was. But I mean, so having those meaningful moments as a pre-service teacher, and then my thing, and one of the main conversations I wanted to have, because I just wondered how it worked. So the path from pre-service teacher to then president of the Wisconsin Math Council. Now, just a little context. Sure. Wisconsin Math Council was like my home, like, organization. So like thinking about the Wisconsin Math Council, where, it was like this approachable place where you could go and learn about the teaching of mathematics, interact with some pretty cool people from even around the country that were leaders in the field. And then also too, get a chance to possibly share a little something that you did with, I remember I shared with Shane Bean a little bit about building community in math classrooms, and thinking about and still talking about that to this day. But never even thinking about stepping into a leadership role. And I would just wonder, like, pre-service teacher to president of the Wisconsin Math Council? I know that that's a big path, but I just wonder what do you think are the mile markers on that path?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, but first I just want to name Wisconsin Math Council is the state affiliate of NCTM. And sometimes people don't even know about it because it's not WCTM. It's WMC, Wisconsin Math Council. But yeah, I think actually, Joel, you were one of the reasons I got really involved with WMC at first, in just terms of attending that annual conference, because we had class on Thursday afternoons, and you were presenting at the annual conference on Thursday afternoon. And you said, we won't have class, but I'd love it if you could all come. And I remember I remember carpooling with a lot of the folks in my cohort up to the annual conference, which was held in Green Lake I think it's been held in Green Lake, Wisconsin Green Lake for 70 some years. Or since the 70s at least. But so went, attended, learned so much, got to see people that I didn't even recognize how big of a name they had in math education at the time. And that just kind of propelled me to keep going back every year. So even when we student taught, we all went back. And then my first few years in Sun Prairie, it was offered. So as a high school teacher, I got to go, and I had a coach that emailed me and said, hey, I have this teacher I'm working with in DeForest, and he wants to present at the annual conference. Would you be interested in co-presenting with him on this topic? And I don't even know what the topic was right now, but I said, okay. So I met a teacher from a different district where we both shared this math coach, and presented that year. And then I started presenting and just like asking colleagues every year to co-present with me because we got free registration. And it was a great way to say to my district, like, please send me because I have free registration and you just have to take care of the sub and the mileage. So that was my first steps into becoming more active with the Wisconsin Math Council. But then in terms of leadership, right, I did got my master's in educational leadership with a principal certification. And from there, I knew I wanted to do more to support in my district. And I moved into that 4K-12 math coordinator role, which, means anything and everything, math, 4K through 12, all the schools.
4K, like, just to make sure everybody knows, that's 4-year-old kindergarten through 12th grade, math, like,
I learned so much. That role was really helpful in my view of working with teachers and students and systems and principals. And but that role also, my predecessor for that role was on the board for the Wisconsin Math Council. And that's when I was like, I think maybe I'll run. So I ran for the admin supervisor representative role. I didn't know which to put my name in for, and that was the recommendation I received from the nominations committee. Lo and behold, was elected to the board. Had no idea what I was getting myself into with Robert's rules. And, like the things that I'm like, I've never been in this space before. But one of the past presidents that was on the board during that time with me, she called me and was like, I think Lori Williams was like, Lisa, you need to run for the president. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm young. I don't know what this role actually is. I've only been on the board 2 years, actually. So I was 2 years into a 3-year term. And she said, your equity focus is something we need. And so I called the current president and I asked her, a lot of questions. She said, there's never a good time. You just got to jump in. And that was the push I needed. So, I ran unopposed because, most of our elections now at the state level, there's less and less people, unfortunately, that are getting involved. And so that's what got me there. And then that moment was really it's been one of the highlights of my leadership career, and being a servant leader to our organization. The teachers in Wisconsin, so many of us are teachers and learners of mathematics, trying to reach, our teachers that support students with IEPs, our multilingual learners, and trying to bring elementary to be able to see themselves more in our mathematics community. We've done a lot and there's a lot more to do. But I met so many awesome people, and just being in that space and working together on larger challenges has been, one of the best professional learning experiences I could ever have.
So you point out a couple things within that story, or, in describing the path. Like, one, the exposure piece, right? You just like, hey, let's think about, from my perspective, is like, this is a nice way to cap off the class, right? Like, not just hey, we're going, I'm presenting, which is convenient, but also too, to say like, hey, like, the learning continues, right? The learning continues. Did Dave Ebert talk to us while we were there at that when he came? He used to come and talk to the classes I would bring. I don't know if he talked to your class.
I don't remember, but that would be a great question to ask him, because he's currently on the board.
Oh, yeah.
And he has been just a wonderful collaborator.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from him.
Was someone that I went to church with, but he was also president of the Wisconsin Math Council. And like I said, hey, I'm bringing up a crew, and we'd be at like a picnic table, and he'd come over and he'd just say, hey, how's it going? Getting the most out of the experience, and, be a member of the Math Council and continue to learn and develop. And like, it was just, again, such a welcoming place to go and learn and develop as a math teacher. And then also too, then getting that nudge to both present and to run. And like, the importance of those things, and like giving those nudges, or receiving those nudges and being open to them. But then also, I'm sure you've probably nudged a few people yourself.
Yeah. That's the thing. I've come into these different spaces because of people that said, hey, I'll do this with you, like, until you're ready. And I try to do that a lot with presenting, especially when I was in Sun Prairie, like, hey, who's going to present this year? I'll even present with you if you want another person, or actually naming what they can bring, or running for the board, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're in the midst of nominations is happening it just happened, and the committee will meet for the Wisconsin Math Council shortly. So asking people, hey, are you ready? I think this is your strength, and this is why you'd be valuable.
Yeah, we talk a lot on the other podcast, the Teaching Math Teaching, about shoulder tapping and I see in you statements. So like, I see in you the ability to do this. And like, where, a lot of times with the presentations, especially when you had that context as the K4 or 4K to 12 math coach, like, you probably saw some people like, ooh, you should share this. And they say, like, well, I don't even know. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is special. This is not, you might think it's just what I do, but yeah, it needs to be shared. And like, that's, think about all the brilliance that you capture from a conference where someone's like sharing their brilliance, and then you see people just writing things down, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize that this was a perspective or a strategy or whatever that was outside of the ordinary.
Yeah, definitely. Two of my former colleagues from Sun Prairie presented last year on some assessment practices they're using, and they were just so giddy about how people were talking to them after their presentation, because, right, like, yes, you go to see whoever's the keynote speaker, of course, but also, right, like, even one of these two teachers named to me, I want to go see Wisconsin teachers present. Like, I want to know what other people are doing around the state. Yeah. And you can learn so much right in our own backyard.
Nice. And I just, from afar, because I would still get emails and things, or get on messages. I'm like, holy cow, Lisa's the president of the Wisconsin Math Council. And it was so tickled. And then again, getting a chance to interact with you more recently, because we've been at some of the same conferences and whatnot. And so that's been kind of fun as well. So I had another prompt. So this kind of harkens back. You weren't in the same cohort as Brian DeSalvo, right?
I was.
You were? Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right. So that's where...
And Kelsey.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So we can post links to Brian and Kelsey's episode of. So Brian, I talked to during the pandemic. We kind of had like a little reflection period, and so we'll kind of base some of the questions off that. And then Kelsey, I had on another podcast where the Road to Better Teaching, but we rebroadcast that on this channel as well. So that's cool. That's a pretty special cohort right there. So let's talk about learnings from each other. And how do we see those learnings in our current roles? And I'm going to start because it kind of goes with what we just talked about. So one is the plan actually works. So like I got nudged by Mary Louise Gomez, Dr. Mary Louise Gomez at the University of Wisconsin. I was in a master's program and she gave me a nudge to come back and pursue a PhD. And like, I remember it was actually like right around now, it was in the fall. I was sick as a dog and I had a phone call conversation. And she talked about getting a chance to interact with teachers and thinking about, you're teaching your high school math classroom. Now think about teaching teachers and think about what can go with like, she's like, increase your blast zone, right? Increase your realm of influence. And then seeing, the path that you've been on and seen the work that you've been doing with, CPM and all you did at Sun Prairie, and now you're teaching teachers, and then thinking, that I could have a little bit of like influence on your story. Like, hey, you almost want to go back to Mary Louise, like, hey, the plan works, right? There's something with this story, and so and like continuing to not thinking about the teachers of teachers that I'm working with now, or also to the actual pre-service teachers that I'm working with, and they're going into schools and now being influenced by my former students. They're clinical instructors and all that sort of stuff. It's just like you seeing it, like you're kind of like the embodiment of like this plan, this perpetual plan of if invest in others and then invest in others, like we can, there can be something that's happening there. So that's one thing.
Awesome. That multiplying your impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've impacted me, and now hopefully I've impacted others too. It reminds me of someone asked me the question the other day, who are 5 people that have been integral in your like journey, right? Mm-hmm. And then, after you reflect, who are 5 people that you've impacted would be like the follow-up question, right? And I think that connects to the, how can I shoulder tap people to come on the journey? But yeah, I was thinking about 2 to maybe 3 learnings that I've learned from you. And one was, I just remember being in methods and learning in like a collaborative way. We had teams of 4 and we made our own team names. They were animals. Our group was the Raging Platypi. I remember that. But really, I think we engaged in a lot of mathematics for social justice, and we engaged in really collaborative ways with each other in the mathematics. And I have to say, at the time, I was not sold, right? Because my experiences were as a student, right? Moving from seeing like a student to seeing like a teacher, I understand what was happening now in methods, but at the time, right, I was like, oh, I don't know if I buy into this yet. But as I look back, that moment was really integral for my own trajectory, because it also placed me then, or I got hired then in a district with those same values about learning collaboratively and engaging in really rich tasks. So I think that was a thing I learned from you, was that focus on a task around social justice and learning in a collaborative way through an inquiry process, really like that whole thing together and how that comes to be in the classroom.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking the same language I was when I was in methods class, and I had 2, Jeff Chopin, who's at Rochester, was my methods instructor as a doc. He was a doc student, now as a awesome professor out at Rochester doing some great work. But he was showing us some stuff, and I'm like, this is not what I'm experiencing now. I had an awesome placement with Joe Dye, and he did a lot of things with technology, but still fairly traditional in the way he's teaching. I'm like, I don't understand how this works. Because I was watching him, he was almost like a stand-up comedian or someone, like not in the fact that he was just like joking around, but I mean, it was fun. It was a fun class. And like, but it was the Joe Dye show. And it was like, he was so engaging, and he would have like little side conversation with someone and come back to the middle, like, and relating it to community context. It was just like, it was an amazing experience, but it was way different from the kind of teaching that I was put into at Sauk Prairie, where it was like, we're going in groups and they're going to figure things out together. And I'm like, what do I do? You know? And then it became that, well, that's just how I'm going to teach. Now it's like figuring out how I teach teachers. And it's like, once you see that and like how engaging it could be, and then it frees you up to then look around and see where the struggles, where are they getting it, versus like, if you're like, and you think about it, if you are a stand-up comedian and you're doing to a whole crowd, or it's teacher said, it's really hard to look at each individual person and see if they're engaged, versus go around and saying, I got 5 groups, 6 groups, and I can see if each group is engaged. I can see, like, that's a little bit easier because I'm not the center of attention. I can roam around and see what's going on. And it's like, once you kind of drink that Kool-Aid, it's kind of hard to go in a different direction.
Yeah, when you have a team around you that's supporting you, right? Because I do remember my placements. One of them was a little more collaborative, right? Students in groups. And the other one was not, but the mentor teacher was very open to letting me do, whatever I wanted to try. And then just going into a district where the teachers were incredibly collaborative, and we all rallied around this idea and met like outside of school. I remember Tuesday and Thursday mornings, maybe before school. That whole first year we implemented CPM. So my first year teaching was also the first year of CPM. So there was a lot of newness, I think, for everyone, which actually was a blessing for me to come into, because I felt like I was just a part of the creation.
Yeah.
And then that prompted the district to say, okay, yep, we'll make sure you all have a common prep period.
Nice.
Because we used it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The environment you're in, once you move out of your pre-service teacher ed program, right, makes a big difference.
Yeah. I was just showing somebody a college preparatory math problem that we did. It was the visualization of the a quadratic function, where it's kind of the pattern that changes over time, and it's like, oh, there's the constant, there's the linear piece, there's the squared piece, and it's like, it was just one of those things where it's like, oh, math doesn't have to be like all just the symbol manipulation and just the regurgitation of algorithms that kind of we were seeing, but it can be kind of exciting and to see like, oh wow, I see it this way, you see it that way, and now those different ways that we see it and describe it can be represented by symbols, and now we can see like, oh, these are equivalent expressions, and now how do they relate to each other? What do they do? What are the good parts? What it's like, it just opens up these conversations that those are harder to have when it's the traditional form of math.
Yeah, that's where I actually learned math, was teaching math from that textbook and working out the problems and coming in, like flying into each other's rooms before school meetings and saying, what are they doing here? And then, like figuring it out. And I remember, like years into teaching, picking up pre-calc and being like, whoa, this is why this is called tangent.
Yeah.
Of course that makes sense. But not having those connections before, right? It helped me better understand not just the pedagogical content knowledge, right, but also the content knowledge. And I think,
and that was, I remember like that in grad school, they talked about the curriculum I think it's called Everyday Mathematics. It's an elementary curriculum. Like they designed that not as like a proof of concept. They were like, and just, hey, no one's going to buy this. We're just showing you that this is what it could be. And then it became a very popular curriculum back in the day. But it was like, it was designed because they're like, an elementary teacher might be learning some of this at the same time as teaching it. And just like with what you just said, and I know for me, when I taught with Core Plus, same thing, I was learning some things about correlation coefficients, or actually how matrix multiplication works, because it was part of the, it was like, it wasn't just regurgitated, but it was like, hey, here's why this is connected, or, the Pythagorean theorem and the distance formula, all that stuff. And it was like, eye-opening, where, you didn't you didn't experience it before, right? You didn't experience that before. And so like having a curriculum that kind of is not only for the teacher, but or not only for the student, but also for the teacher as well. It's kind of like, remember, I don't know, you remember, well, it's like a good cartoon, like Shrek. I remember, like Shrek was designed to be entertaining for both the parents and the kids. You know, there's things like, oh, you know, like there's jokes for everybody, and it's like the same thing. Like I think a good curriculum does the same as well, where it's like everyone's learning. We're all learning together. We're just different levels of learners, but we're all just doing this together.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like when you experience, I mean, and just I'm old and it's hard to remember. Did I have the person from CPM come to our methods class?
I don't remember, but I do remember doing a curriculum comparison project or something where we had to look at a couple different curriculums and present which one we would pick. I don't know.
I remember because I remember that I'd have a CPM person come in and I was like exposed to some of these things. And I was like, wow, there's some, again, cool things that you get to look at and examine outside of some of the other more standard curriculum that you'd see. So I guess that's one of my learnings was about the importance of good curriculum or good ingredients and having, we do a lot of cooking in our house and just, going to go get some bread so you can get the generic white bread from, Kroger or whatever. But then like every now and then we get like the sourdough loaf, the circular you got to cut and, slice yourself. And it's like, there's something a little bit better with a sandwich made from that good stuff than the white bread. Now I tell you, I do have recollections of some awesome white bread sandwiches, but that sourdough loaf takes it to another level, and think about the same thing with curriculum, like what you're able to do, collaborative, good tasks that allow for, wow, we're really going to be thinking about mathematics. And so seeing the passion that you talk about with CPM and what that provided for your students and the teachers that you're interacting with, I don't know, it's like just reminding me of that. Like there is something there about those high quality instructional materials or HQIMs that if we give those to teachers and students, like good stuff can happen.
Yeah. And I think it adds, there's so many out there. We worked with Bridges in elementary when I was in Sun Prairie too. And I felt like I learned so much elementary math by working through those problems or seeing teachers implement those lessons. And I think one of the moments actually, I think about having high quality instructional materials as freeing up my brain space to like really think about what questions I'm posing to students, think about what they're saying to me, how am I responding to that, how am I going to ensure that they're learning, but I'm not pushing that learning too quickly, right? It's a part of that mastery over time. But one of the awesome roles I got was I was a teacher leader with college prep math for a while, and just even leading implementation PD. I learned so much from teachers around our state that were implementing and how they were solving the problems mathematically, how they were engaging with each other, how they were planning lessons to micro teach, right? And which strategies they were pulling and why, and how they were setting it up differently. It was, I think it allows for a lot of creativity within some context of what I'm doing. So how can I still support my students in my room or, like in our community, but in a way that makes sense for me? Like anyone can pick it up and still make it usable to them.
So what did that do for like being that implementation, you said implementation leader? Like, what did that do for, because I'm assuming that came in a few years into teaching, right?
Yeah. Well, it definitely was not right away.
Yeah. But like, at that point in time where it's like, okay, I'm starting to get a little confident. And then it's almost like going back to that nudging where probably I'm guessing someone nudged you like, hey.
It was a nudge.
Yeah. Hey, Lisa, like, would you like to take on this role? And all of a sudden it's like, okay, I do know what I'm, I've got some knowledge and ability that I can then hand off to somebody and again, influence others with how best to teach this. Then, hey, I was overwhelmed with that too. Or, hey, have you thought about doing this? This would help. You know, like, I don't know, like describe that on-ramp into that role.
Yeah. So Tracy Frank, who was actually
yes,
my
Tracy would
coach.
come to my class. Yes.
Okay. So she would come to my class, and she was the one that shoulder tapped me to become a teacher leader with CPM. And so I did, and I actually got to shadow Cindy Lowe, who was in Oshkosh at the time, but I think is now in Menasha. Her run and implementation of the geometry course, which geometry was my bread and butter. That's what I taught every year.
Nice.
And so I learned from her, like my parents, lived close to her. So I went up and stayed with my parents. We planned the PD together and then implemented. And that was like one of the first times that I, outside of the Wisconsin Math Council, like an hour-long session, right? That's the first time I led PD with teachers. And it was in a very supportive environment where I had someone who'd been doing it a while, do it. And we co-planned, and I got to shadow and lead a couple of different parts. So then I could kind of take it from there. But I think that without those experiences, I wouldn't be so, enthralled with working with teachers now, right? Like that's what pushed me towards my master's in ed leadership, towards being the 4K-12 math coordinators, because I felt so excited after every single day of leading that PD, because I learned so much. There was so much expertise in the room. I was building new connections with people across the state in different districts. And also I was seeing so much joy from teachers and them like seeing math in new lenses and working collaboratively with people they had such strong rapport with. Because at the time we were doing it by district adoption, right? Like I'd go to Oconomowoc and we're going to do this training with all the Oconomowoc teachers, right? So anyway, it was just I actually think that's part of the reason I applied for this job here at University of Wisconsin-Madison, is because I found so much joy in facilitating professional development that I was like, wow, I really want to take my coaching skills and my PD skills and work with pre-service teachers.
Nice. Yeah. Glad you are.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that leads to one other learning, and then want to make sure to honor your time, but like keep the numbers. Right. And so like what I mean, keep the phone numbers. And so, like those connections, and like, we hadn't probably talked for a while. And I think that's when you were either thinking about pursuing a PhD or thinking about pursuing this role. And like the fact that I was so delighted that you reached out and we had some good conversations about that. But I don't know, like maintaining those professional connections, I think is something that just want to make sure that we continue to do, right? Because we're all trying to do have the same sort of goals, that wanting the best math education experiences for students out there. And how can we all contribute to that?
Right. We might sometimes disagree on the path to get there, but at the end of the day, that is our end goal. And keeping those connections, I think, is really amazing. I couldn't believe that I still had your phone number in my phone from undergrad. And Tori, who we saw last week or 2 weeks ago, right? Her number was still in my phone too.
That's right.
It's funny. Someone said to me once, you never know which student in your class is going to be your boss someday. And it makes me think about, right, this world of math education and how like you get to know all the people, but all the people are still around. Like we're all doing different things and our lives are going to intersect at different moments. And now we're instead of intersecting on the University of Wisconsin campus, we're intersecting at the AMTE conference, and get a chance to catch up there and talk about what we're doing in this world. So that's pretty cool. So you've had a lot of different roles, and want to make sure that you're thinking about other roles that you might want to pursue. So one that you are pursuing is to be on the NCTM board. So like, that's like, I mean,
I'm still thinking like, how would I even go about doing it? Like what's the path to that? Because I think, don't you have to have served on a state affiliate first before you have the capability to serve on the National Council of Teachers Mathematics Board?
Yes. So, and there's a couple different avenues to move forward. One is to serve in the capacity in a state affiliate on their board. Mm-hmm. Another one is to have served on an NCTM committee. Mm-hmm. And there might be a third that I don't remember at the moment. But yeah, so and I would say Dave Ebert, right? You named him before, president of the Wisconsin Math Council. He also was on the National Council of Teachers of Math Board. And he did some nudging. So here we are again.
He's a good nudger.
Right? Yeah. Nudging. And I've just been thinking about, that experience being so important on my own trajectory that I was thinking about how can I be a servant leader beyond the scope of Wisconsin, thinking about my purpose that I came up with a couple of years ago as I've been like really thinking about like, what am I doing? What are my next steps? Right. As I really want to ensure that every person is seen as valued as mathematical by their peers, their family, their community, themselves, their teachers. And I really mean every person, like obviously our students, but my husband doesn't love mathematics, had a terrible experience with that. And that just makes me a little sad. So I'm thinking about how can we all work together on that, and how can we, bring in our special ed teachers so that they also see themselves as teachers of mathematics and really collaborate and learn from each other. Same with our elementary teachers who often sometimes feel put down by, high school math, which is where I'm from, right? But the way that we talk about mathematics doesn't always come out as an inclusive space. So I'm hoping to work more around being an inclusive environment for all teachers. And I know one of the challenges, even in the Wisconsin Math Council right now, is membership. Mm-hmm. And bringing in that next generation of educators into this space and seeing the value of networking beyond, our school district or our classroom walls. And so that's something that I'm hoping to be a part of and really help represent, the experiences I've had in the different roles I've had and support kids at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I mean, and even thinking about we will talk about our experiences in math class about being good memorizers and executors of algorithms, and like that kind of led us down this path. But then always seeing like, hey, we got through the gate, and there's so many people that don't get through the gatekeeping of math. Even thinking probably, I mean, I know on Wisconsin campus, I know on our campus, math is still used to filter folks out. And it's like, versus like, we need more people to see themselves as the doers of mathematics that they are. And so how do we do that? How do we honor people? And like, even I saw a presentation from Elham Kazemi at the Math Educator Appreciation Day in Arizona. And she had this video of a student interviewing their dad about, little like first grader, about like the math that they do. And this father ran the food pantry in the community, and just talking about a little bit about the math that they did. And just, wow, my dad, who's my little hero, is like, I see how he does math, and like, hey, I'm going to be a doer of math too. And it's just like this small little thing, but it's like, now it's probably, even maybe the dad doesn't see themselves as it, but they're being, this interviewed to be as a doer of math, and like, hey, maybe I see myself more as a doer. And like that little nudge that teacher probably gave to that dad, and now that student, and like everyone got nudged towards being a doer rather than seeing themselves, which is so common, is like, no, I'm not a math person. I'm not a doer of math. And so I love that's part of your aim, is like every person, that's a good one. Yeah. I love it.
Well, that's actually one of the goals I had coming into being a math teacher. I remember like thinking about my peers in high school and their different experiences, or my sister's different experiences with math. And that kind of, brought me here. And what you're naming is so true. Like I said, my husband, he actually teaches the electrical apprenticeship. Like he's an electrician by trade. And guess what he's teaching?
A lot of math, probably.
A lot of math. And it's something that I also don't know if all of our high school math teachers, like I didn't know until now, like, okay, well, we're working with vectors, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay. So where is that? Algebra 2 or pre-calc where you maybe learn about vectors, and that's a part of becoming an electrician. It's super interesting.
Yeah. I say I'd like to know more about that, because I'm I just know about some circuits, and shut it off before I change the outlets. Just hey, you know what, and also too, just on a side note, like you're putting yourself out there, like, and you're taking a risk, and I appreciate you doing that and wanting to say, like, hey, I'd like to be in like, if you've seen the ballot, there's lots of people on the ballot for NCTM board. So if you're a member of NCTM, go out and vote. And, you know, just the fact that you're willing to put your name out there, that you have this goal and you want to represent even beyond your state, appreciate it, Lisa. It makes, it makes me proud. I don't want to make it feel like it does, but it does. Like, hey, I know Lisa, and the fact that you're on that ballot, it makes me happy, or it makes me happy. It makes me happy and proud. Yeah. So I'm glad you're doing it. That.
Yeah. And just everyone should review all the candidates to vote, because there are pretty incredible people on the ballot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a couple things to wrap us up. Hey, what's the best thing you do lately to help your teaching? What's one thing you've learned lately to help your teaching, to help improve your teaching?
Oh, this is a tough question. I feel like I'm learning a lot all the time. And teaching teachers, particularly teaching pre-service teachers, is still very new to me, right? Like I'm in year 2. And I think I've learned a lot about allowing, maybe allowing is the wrong word. But my pre-service teachers, I want them to be human with me. I want them to be honest with me. I want them to name their challenges and really show up for who they are and bring all of their experiences with them. And that is something that I'm still grappling with. So I don't know if I fully have the answers, but I'm trying to navigate, working with adults that are doing, really hard things and in an accelerated program. And so I guess I'm just grace and flexibility.
Yeah.
I guess is something I'm learning to work on.
Well, the fact that you recognize that that's something that you want to do in your teaching, and like some people, maybe they haven't had that aha yet, like, bringing the human, like you're teaching not just skills, but it's this is a very relational human endeavor it's one of, teaching others, and so how do we do that well? You got to bring some of that in, and some people that could be tough, right? To bring yourself into a space, and how do you help those teach better? It's gonna have to be a little bit messy sometimes, because when we're dealing with humans and humans, like it can be a little bit messy.
Yeah. Yeah. And remembering that they have such incredible assets to bring. Sometimes I think we think about our pre-service teachers in the frame of, they haven't had the experience yet, or they're still seeing like a student.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they do have so many incredible assets they can bring. And sometimes those fresh eyes are just give us a more critical lens on what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So something I'm working on.
Yeah. Well, and also too, wanting them not to act like a teacher, but to be the teacher that they were meant to be. Right.
Exactly.
Like, how do we do that? How do we do that well? Hey, one more thing, and I'll let you go. What is one, I've been doing this thing with albums, because I think trying to bring my own humanity, like trying to think about albums. So what is one album that you love to listen to? Like, not just a song, because we just get songs, but like an album. It could be way back in the day, whatever. What's one album that you love to listen to?
I love the Black Keys, and I would probably say their album El Camino.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
So I am a rocker at heart. Like my dad listened to AC/DC,
Yeah.
Pink Floyd, you know,
There
like,
you go.
and then my uncle actually works as a DJ at a radio station that plays, they're called the Rockin' Apple because they're in
Nice.
Appleton. But yeah, I love rock, and I know the Black Keys are a little bit newer than those bands I previously named, but they have a great album.
I'm gonna blow your mind. So I think Thickfreakness, you know that album from Black Keys, right?
Yeah.
That was from Fat Possum, which is down in Oxford, Mississippi.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom. They love, because the Black Keys loved the blues, and Fat Possum was created as a label to capture the North Mississippi Hill Country blues. So R.L. Burnside, Junior Kimbrough, like these people. And then when you listen to those artists, you're like, oh yeah, I can hear like the nasty guitar that the Black Keys has that Dave Auerbach does. Like you hear it, like it's like, oh, that's it. There's the sound. So there you go. You like that?
Awesome. Yeah. I do. I love the little trivia.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much again for all that you're doing to make a difference in math education, both in Wisconsin and now thinking about more broadly with NCTM, and good luck with the election. And if you're a member of the NCTM board, we'll put a link in the show notes. Go vote, go take a look at all the candidates, make a selection, and thank you for taking the risk. Thank you for taking the time, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Joel.
All right, there's my conversation with Lisa Hennessey, and now it's time for the album of the episode. And I'm going to just piggyback onto what we were just ending that conversation with and bring up Thickfreakness from the Black Keys. When I heard selections from that album, and I don't know if it was on 105.5 Triple M radio or it was like a Spotify playlist where all of a sudden this music came up. And it was kind of like with Kaleo, where it was like, is this real? It felt like someone was making something up. It was like so perfect in this kind of unique sound and just nasty guitars. And when you heard that it was just a guitar and a drum, and they would do some overdubs and things like that. It was amazing. And I've talked about the Black Keys before. I've talked about them when we talked about R.L. Burnside before, and I've talked about the Black Keys when I did our episode with about Rick Rubin and Malcolm Gladwell and the Broken Record podcast, and talk about the Black Keys and how amazing they were from the start, like from the minute they started. They started recording and they started creating sounds that sounded awesome. And I remember Rick Rubin, when he heard like the first recording ever that I think Dan or Pat like played for him on the Broken Record podcast, he's like, you sound great. And like, he's like, if anything, you're getting worse. It's like the amazingness that they had, the magic that they had from the beginning. And I think it's some of that magic that I was hearing the first time I heard them, when it was like, it was so good. Like this just amazing guitar and then haunting vocals, and the, intense drum beat. And then you hear, again, as I learned more about through the Broken Record podcast, through listening to R.L. Burnside, like some of the roots that exist within that music, it's kind of amazing. So if you've never listened to Thickfreakness, I would say take a listen. It's a great album pickup. It's, again, like I said, Lisa, like Fat Possum Records is a part of their history, and you can kind of hear, again, their blues history within that, but then just the fact that they wanted to be on that label is kind of cool, because that the record store that was a part of Fat Possum is in downtown Oxford, and it's where I get to go. And they still have some, obviously some Black Keys, but then all this great collection of blues albums. So, all right, that's going to do it for this episode of Amidon Planet. Thank you to y'all for listening. If you're looking for show notes, they can be found at amidonplanet.com/episode 121. For those of you looking for ways to support the podcast, we always appreciate it. You can subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode, which will allow more people looking for similar content to find it. In addition, you can subscribe to the Amidon Planet download, which is Amidon Planet Dispatch, containing teaching resources and updates from Amidon Planet. Anywhere you see on the website to join the email list, you can hit that and you'll get the latest edition, which should be coming out fairly soon, probably the beginning of next week. You can also submit a question, comment, or suggestion in the mailbag by sending an email to joel@amazonplanet.com. We still have some stickers available, so if you send me anything, like a question, comment, or suggestion, and you send me your mailing address, I'll send you an Amazon Planet sticker back at you in the mail. Who doesn't like getting mail? So go ahead and do that. And in addition, I'm always looking for opportunities to work with those who are looking to lead people to love others through teaching. If you have an event or opportunity to share, or you want to share this information with somebody else, you can either send an email to joel@amazonplanet.com or head to amazonplanet.com/about to fill out the request a call form. Finally, thank you for spending time on Amazon Planet. Thanks to Lisa Hennessey for sharing her time and expertise. Thanks to Matt Mifflin for the music in this episode. And finally, thank you to all of you out there learning to teach better and be the good in the world by investing in the lives of others. This world is a better place because you have decided to use the gifts you've been given to serve others. Thank you for all that you do. Peace. I didn't know about, who sings the Pink Pony, that song? You know that?
Oh, yes, I do know the song. Oh, her name is escaping me right now, but
Chapel Roan.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Totally missed the Chapel Roan bus. It went by me, and then people were like, "Hey, this song is like really," and I'm like, "Huh?" Or like but every now and then my kids, like, I think they tell me about something like maybe like like a half a minute or half a week, like I'm a little late, but that one I felt really late on.